Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah and on this channel I post a lot of anti-MLM content. So as always, I have a playlist linked right here for you and down below. This is a ginormous, super bingeable playlist with over 140 anti-MLM videos on it. And if that content does interest you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, liking this video. Those things really help to support the channel, get the anti-MLM message out there a little bit further, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. Today's video is MLM Horror Stories number 52. We are really getting up there. We've had a lot of these videos under our belt, and there's also a smaller playlist dedicated to just horror story videos as well, if that's really your jam. You can find that playlist super easily if you go to my YouTube channel page, but we're gonna keep at it. We're gonna keep chipping away. I have so many horror stories in my inbox to get through. I could make hundreds more of these videos if I wanted, and I do want to, so here's another one for you. And please remember that if at any point you have your own MLM horror story you do want to send in and have considered for a video, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. That's all the intro stuff I have for you. Let's get into these stories today. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I've worked in healthcare for the last 8 years for the same company, and we have reps from other offices that come into our office to provide us with lunches, holiday baskets, etc. in exchange for the possibility of referring our patients to them for things like car accidents, chiropractic care, and physical therapy. This is a very common occurrence in healthcare, and we usually build a great relationship with a lot of the reps we see. One in particular, we'll call her Andrea for this story, used to come in a lot. A little backstory on her: she was kind of a sketchy character, but we liked her. She was overly open about her personal life with us. She had a history of drug and alcohol abuse, a ton of lawsuits going on all the time, losing custody of her daughter, and having multiple divorces over the course of knowing her. She was always surrounded by all this drama in her life, but being the person I am, I saw through that and I figured she just had a rough life and was trying to get through it and better herself. We built a great friendship with her, and she would invite us to her house for barbecues and to swim, and we had a great friendship overall. Upon visiting her home, she always had amazing smelling candles burning, and upon complimenting her on them came the Pitch for Gold Canyon, which is not in business anymore from what I found on Google. Her candle company. She sold these amazing candles and supposedly made the equivalent of her full-time job selling them and barely had to do any work. Basically saying that they sold themselves. Amazing, right? They did really smell good, and they were sized and priced pretty comparable to like Bath and Body Works candles. I wasn't really familiar with MLMs as much as I am today, and I genuinely thought she just wanted to help me with a little side hustle, so my coworker and I signed up. From my memory, the sign-up fee for the startup kit was like $30. They were running a sign-up special. And you got a sample wax kit with like 20 to 25 sample wax melts with all the different scents, 2 large candles, and a ton of material to quote, learn the business. You would just pay a small monthly fee for your website, and there was no minimum sales to stay active, so I figured if I didn't like it after a month or so, I really wasn't losing out on too much, and I'd still end up using the candles and wax melts, so not a ton of risk to me financially. I tried my hand at the business. I set up a Facebook page and opened up my website and tried my absolute best. I just couldn't sell anything. I looked to her for help as my upline, and she said I just had to promote more, post more, and try to get friends and family to purchase products or sign up. I had to really want to make the money, which she originally made it seem like the candles sold themselves, so why was it that hard? I didn't want to do these weekly Skype calls and group chats and weekly meetups with other reps at their houses for dinners, because none of this was told to me when she got me to sign up. I was under the impression that I could do this from home with little effort because that's literally what she told me, and I trusted her. No one seemed interested no matter what I tried, and after 2 months of losing my absolute mind trying to sell these stupid freaking candles thinking I was a complete failure, I just gave up and canceled my whole account. I didn't tell her or any of the other reps I was going to cancel. I just did it one day, and that was that. I think the experience that you're reporting here is a pretty common one, that the narrative before you join is that these products sell themselves, it's so easy, make a little bit of extra money, do it as a side hustle in your free time from your home, all of these things, but it's never truly that easy. Those are just the promises that they make to you up front to try and get you into the opportunity, and it's kind of up to you to discover on your own afterwards that it's not really as easy as they told you it was going to be. So many many people report this in their MLM horror stories, and I'm sure a lot of people who get involved with these companies can relate to that. She didn't really express verbally that she was upset with me for canceling, but she didn't come around as much, and when she did, she treated me so different. I still had her as a Facebook friend, but I distanced myself from her because I was kind of annoyed that she pitched this amazing opportunity to me just for me to fail and waste all this time. This next part might get a bit confusing, so I'll try to make it understandable. Andrea had a son, we will call him Jake, who was around my age, and we started talking here and there and eventually hooked up. Probably shouldn't have done that, but it just randomly happened, so whatever. Jake and I hooked up once in early summer and it never happened again. So fast forward to winter of that same year, I ended up getting pregnant with my first child with a new boyfriend, and we were so excited. Around spring of the following year, and I was halfway through my pregnancy, I received a Facebook message from a girl that I didn't know that completely caught me off guard. We'll call her Laura, claiming that Andrea had sent her photos of me pregnant, claiming that Jake was the father of my unborn child. This girl who sent me the messages was apparently Jake's wife or girlfriend. I don't really know the exact status they were, but he never mentioned her when we had hooked up, so I had no idea she existed, or I wouldn't have hooked up with him. She sent me screenshots of the conversation with Andrea, who I guess did not like Laura at all, and she was trying to break them up. The conversation was basically, quote, "Laura, you think Jake has been faithful to you and you've been around for years, but look at his side girlfriend that he got pregnant and she's having his kid now." I was shocked and utterly disgusted that she basically stole a bunch of my pregnancy photos from my Facebook page and sent them to this poor girl, trying to claim that Jake had cheated on her with me and now I was pregnant with his child. This poor girl was pretty much begging for me to tell her the truth, and she was so upset. I told her there's literally no way it's possible Jake is my child's father. The dates don't even match up, and Andrea is literally a psycho, and I can't believe she would do something like this as a grown-up woman. At this time, I'm in my early to mid 20s and Andrea is in her 40s. Laura told me that she's a really toxic person and manipulative when things don't go her way, and she always gets back at you. She thanked me for being honest with her and wished me luck with the pregnancy. This sounds like a really crazy situation that you found yourself in through no fault of your own, really. You just kind of got roped into this rumor or this story that Andrea was kind of making up about you. Not a good look on Andrea's part that she's inserting herself into this situation that she has no business being a part of to seemingly make you look bad or make you look like the villain as she's trying to break up this relationship between Laura and Jake. Really messy. I didn't realize how toxic she really was, and thinking back to all the stuff that was happening in her life, I guess it makes sense for her to do something like this. Needless to say, I blocked Andrea on Facebook, Instagram, and blocked her number entirely, and never even told her I knew about the photos, but I assume she found out because to this day she hasn't ever come back to my job, and I think what she did was her way of retaliating for me canceling my account and quitting on her without notice, because she didn't make any money off of me and thought that I wasted her time by giving me this opportunity that I didn't even try to work hard at. I never joined any MLMs after that and never will, and now I'm completely anti-MLM. I believe the MLM community is incredibly toxic, and the people involved see anyone they know as an opportunity to use you and to make money off of you. And once you quit, they want nothing to do with you anymore because you're not worth anything to them. I love the work you do exposing the truth about these MLMs, and I'm obsessed with anti-MLM everything now. I found your channel and I binge watch your MLM horror stories series. Thank you for what you do. So I was kind of curious about how this anecdote about using your pregnancy pictures to break up someone else was going to come back around and be tied into the MLM thing. And I do think your point is pretty compelling given the difference in her actions and her attitude towards you before you join the MLM on her team versus after you quit. It seems to be that those are like two different versions of the same person. Before you join, she's nice to you, you're friendly, you go to her house, you hang out with her regularly. Then there's that pivotal moment of you joining her downline and subsequently leaving the MLM. And then there's this whole new version of Andrea after the fact. She doesn't contact you directly anymore. She doesn't hang out with you anymore. She's not coming into your healthcare office anymore as a representative trying to build those connections professionally. And on top of it, she's kind of taken this very personal attack against you by creating this whole false narrative about you and your pregnancy and how that relates to her and her son. And it does just kind of beg the question, like, if you were still on her team, would she have done something that dramatic? If you were a quote unquote successful team member of hers actively making sales and working to make her money, would she be treating you this exact same way today? I would say probably not. This is definitely a very drastic and extreme version of this example that we talk about a lot, of how once you leave the MLM, your former uplines or teammates, they don't interact with you in the same way. And they, in a sense, kind of toss you to the side because they don't have any use for you anymore. It's a waste of their time and energy to try and keep that relationship afloat. So a lot of times people just leave it at that. But this example is extreme in the sense that it seems that Andrea took it one step further by engaging in this very personal and uncalled for attack on you and trying to get you involved in this nasty situation that really doesn't have anything to do with the MLM, but you have to wonder about her motives behind doing that to you. It just kind of makes you wonder. So thank you for sending in this story. This one says, "Hi Hannah, due to the nature of this story, I will be keeping things as anonymous as possible. To clarify, this is not my personal experience with an MLM, but rather the story of a friend who I feel is being exploited during a very difficult time. Some background. About 3 years ago, a friend of mine found out she was pregnant after years of struggling with infertility. However, partway through her pregnancy, doctors noticed a problem. Her little girl only had half a heart. There was a significant struggle on the parents' part to decide whether to keep the child, knowing that she would have a shortened lifespan. Ultimately, they made that decision and began to prepare for a life that would require constant medical supervision and a place on a heart transplant list. During this time, my friend was feeling very guilty, wondering if something she had done or not done had led to this medical issue. She wanted her and her daughter's life to be as healthy as possible, but with appointments and emergencies, often didn't have the time for a healthy diet. Cue another friend of hers who suggested that Arbonne teas and supplements could provide all the nutrition she and her little girl needed. My understanding is that the representative may have hinted that her lack of a healthy lifestyle was at fault for her daughter's heart condition, and that Arbonne supplements would help to make the child well. My friend bought into this with all the hope of a woman who is desperate for anything that may allow her child to live a longer life. Unfortunately, her daughter died just 3 weeks ago at the age of 2.5. Understandably, my friend is not in a mindset to return to work, but requires money to help cover the crippling debt from her daughter's care. The day after the funeral, which was just this week, she posts that she will now be a representative of Arbonne herself. She mentions in her Facebook post that her friend recommended becoming a representative to help pay off the debt from the medical bills on her own time. I suspect from the sound of this post, the representative may have suggested that it was easy money. However, since this post came out the day after the burial, it's clear that this representative was preying on her grief over the loss of her daughter and was purposely exploiting a grieving mother. It wasn't enough to blame the mother for her own daughter's illness, but she then went on to exploit her grief when the products did not, in fact, save the child's life. Unfortunately, my friend is not in a place to hear that her new endeavor is an MLM. The guilt and grief are too overwhelming right now. I can only hope that with time, she will get out before it consumes her. Well, this is a heartbreaking story. Gosh, this Arbonne rep is ruthless in her attempts to recruit this person. Ugh, I'm infuriated right now. I think this is hitting me a little harder than it normally would because currently I am pregnant with my own daughter. So weird to say that out loud. Oh my gosh. And with every appointment and every ultrasound, you're just hoping that everything's okay. And I can very heavily relate to the fact that if I did get some kind of bad news that my daughter does have a severe health condition and that she won't live a full life, that would destroy me. And I can understand how vulnerable of a position that would put her in, wondering if it's something she did in the health choices that she made that resulted in her daughter having this heart defect, which by the way is most likely not the case. There are so many things that can go wrong in a pregnancy that are not the mother's fault whatsoever, just to make that very clear. But naturally that would already be a fear that you have yourself. And so when you have someone else coming into your life saying, hey, maybe it was your health choices that resulted in this, I have a product for you. That is so predatory, and you were hitting that mother in the softest spot where it's gonna hurt the most. And it just gets worse, right? Recommending that the products can help her daughter's health. When that promise doesn't come to fruition, now you're saying that the business side of Arbonne can help you financially to cover all this debt that you have. Oh, it's really, really, really sickening. My heart is breaking for your friend. I can't even begin to comprehend the kind of grief and trauma that losing a child would bring somebody. And what this all boils boils down to is somebody in Arbonne is looking at this woman and they see an opportunity. They see dollar signs. Somebody with a sick daughter, cha-ching. Someone with a deceased daughter, cha-ching. Someone with crippling medical debt, there's an opportunity. Oh, like it's so frustrating because that Arbonne rep is the person who's benefiting the most from this entire situation. She might be able to lie to herself and say, oh, I'm giving this woman the opportunity of a lifetime to pay off her debt and to make herself healthy. But those are empty promises that are not guarantees. And in order for your friend to see any financial payoff from this Arbonne business, she's gonna have to recruit people herself. And she may have to engage in the same predatory tactics that were used on her. So in the end, nobody's really winning here, but at this moment, this Arbonne rep is the person who's benefiting the most. She successfully convinced a vulnerable person that this opportunity would be good for them, and she got them to sign up for her own financial gain. Sickening. I hate it. If there are any new developments in this story, please send them to me. All I want to hear is that your friend realizes that Arbonne is not going to be a good path for her and that she ditches it altogether. But like you said, right now is a very sensitive time. It might not be the ideal timing to try and get her on the anti-MLM train and like overwhelm her with all the reasons why joining is a bad idea. I just hope that she can come to that realization quickly and without too much financial or emotional damage. So if that ever happens, please send me an email. Let me know that everything's gonna be okay. I have your friend in my thoughts as she's going through this really difficult time right now. This story says, hi Hannah, I love your videos. They are so entertaining to watch and informative as well. Keep up the good work. This isn't a typical horror story as my family and I were never personally involved in an MLM, but I think the story is pretty wild, so I decided to send it anyway. Please keep me anonymous. I'm from Hong Kong and I've never seen a story on your channel in Asia, so this might be the first. I think it is the first, but keep in mind, I have over 1,000 unread horror stories in my inbox. There very well could be others from Asia that I just haven't read yet, but here is a reminder that my stories are not limited to the US or to North America. That is a region where MLMs are very prevalent, and so a lot of stories do come from those countries, but stories can come from all over the world, and I love when they do, so thank you for that. So around 8 years ago when I was in middle school, our family friend Michelle asked if we wanted to purchase a water filter system and invited us to her company for a pitch. We were considering it since we can't just drink tap water as it is in Hong Kong, and you have to put it in a kettle and then cool it down to drink. And having a filter system would be more convenient for us. So my mom decided to go and I tagged along. The company was Kangen Water. We didn't know it was an MLM at the time, but we will find out later in the story. Yes, once you said water filter system, I was like, oh my gosh, it has to be Kangen. And just for some clarification, the MLM company itself is called Enagic, and the product they sell is called the Kangen water filter. Sometimes the two names are used interchangeably, so just know that when you say Kangen, that also means Enagic, and if someone says Enagic, that also means Kangen. Just be aware of those two names because they are one and the same. The pitch was normal at first, just demonstrating how to use the system, etc., and then she started making claims like this water will improve your health and make your skin better, which I thought sounded too good to be true. I was 14 and had a lot of acne and pimples at the time, which is pretty common for that age. So she kind of focused that pitch on me and how the water is going to fix my face. It was just weird to me since all we wanted was a filter system that could filter tap water to be safe drinking water, and we were pretty interested in purchasing it already, so she didn't really need to go into all that, but I guess she just wanted to make sure. Anyways, we decided to buy one, and she had my mom sign something, which at the time my mom just thought was buying the filter, so she didn't think much about it. And this is something I've truly never thought about before, and I'm happy that your story is bringing it up, because until this point, the only stories that I've really heard about Enagic or their Kangen water filters have been within the US, and it's interesting to think about that in the context that in most places in the US, tap water is drinkable. It might not be preferable to some people, but in most cases it is still safe to drink. You can if you want to. And so what that means is within the United States market, Kangen water filters can't really just be sold on the basis that they're just making your water safe to drink. They don't really lean into that side of the pitch because there's not really a need for it here. They definitely lean more heavily into what you're saying here about like, it'll improve your health and it has all these benefits and it'll fix your acne or clear up your skin or whatever it is. That's the angle they take on it, and that's the only angle I've really ever seen. So I love that your story is bringing this up because Kangen operates in a lot of countries outside the US where there might not be safe drinking water from the tap, in which case that would probably be a part of the pitch that they really rely on. And it kind of just has me wondering if Kangen water filters are somewhat of an easier sell in countries that don't have safe drinking water from the tap, because like you said, you don't really have to make all these extra claims about health benefits and stuff in order for somebody to be interested or to make the purchase. My wheels are turning. That's something I never considered before, and I love when that happens with these stories. Here's where the story gets interesting. A few months later, it was around the time to file our taxes. I'm not sure how the taxes work, but basically my mom found out that she had income and taxes to file, which was not normal because she didn't have a job. It was all linked to Kangen water. Turns out Michelle signed up my mom as her downline without her permission and sold 10 filters under my mom's name. My mom never saw the money because Michelle would just directly get the money but list the sales under my mom's name. So now we have taxes to pay, but we never saw any of the money she made. My parents were furious, rightfully so, because this meant that Michelle forged the documents and the signatures and essentially used my mom's identity to evade tax and maybe move herself up in the MLM. When they confronted her, she said she would just pay my mom back and didn't see what the big deal was since she wasn't doing anything illegal under my mom's name. Apparently, Michelle thought that since my mom didn't have a job, she wouldn't have to file for taxes, so there was no harm in what she was doing. That makes absolutely no sense at all to me. Of course, I've never filed taxes in China, but I know that in the US, income is income, whether or not it's coming from a quote-unquote job or not. And when you join these MLM companies, you're joining as an independent contractor, which basically means that you're self-employed. You don't have a boss, you don't have an employer giving you a certain paycheck and taking taxes out of it and things like that. So taxes are up to you at the end of the year. The income that you've made gets reported, and now you're responsible for paying those taxes if they haven't been taken out previously by an employer. And if Michelle signed up your mom to become an independent contractor and then sold 10 Kangen water filters under her name, which by the way, these filters are thousands of dollars, that's obviously going to show up somewhere. That's obviously going to be reported as income, and you're going to have to pay taxes on it. I don't know what Michelle was thinking. I don't understand how she thought she could get away with that. The worst part for my parents wasn't even the headache of the taxes and sorting everything out. It was just sad that their friend of over 30 years would do this to us without asking. They didn't understand how Michelle just didn't think it was an issue when she violated their trust. She was never going to tell them if it wasn't for the tax notice we received. My parents haven't spoken to her since. We also found out that she has other victims as well. One of them was actually getting benefits from the government for unemployment, but because of Michelle using her name to sell products, she was no longer eligible for the benefits. That is so messed up. Now, not only are you using someone else's identity and making sales under them and pocketing all of the money and they don't see any of it, now because it's reported they're making all this income even though they're not seeing any of it, their benefits are revoked. That right there is super, super infuriating. I don't think Michelle fully understood the gravity of her actions. Forging signatures and documents is illegal, and we could technically go to the police and report her. This is not her recruiting my mom because she never did that. She straight up committed identity fraud. The saddest part is she used to be a close friend of our family, and my parents lost a lifelong friend because she was sucked into an MLM. I don't know if she's still with Kangen Water since it's been a long time and we don't have contact with her anymore, but I hope she got out and is MLM free. I hope this was an interesting read. An interesting read for sure. What's important to consider here is what motivation does Michelle have to be selling these water filters under other people's names? Why does she feel the need to do that versus just taking credit for the sales for herself? Okay, so here's the deal. I've just spent the last 30 minutes trying to understand the Enagic compensation plan. I've watched a couple videos, I've read a couple articles. I thought I understood it, so I started to explain it, but I'm realizing that my explanation is not very clear, and I feel like at the end of it, I was just confusing myself and potentially confusing the listener way more than was necessary. So I'm just gonna wrap it up in one nice, neat sentence. And basically what we need to know is that the way the Enagic compensation plan is structured structured, it was more beneficial for Michelle to sign up other people and sell filters under them than it would be if she just signed them up under herself and sold them under herself. Okay, that's where I'm gonna leave it because trying to explain this would have been completely mind-numbing and I'm sure a lot of people would have just tuned out. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, okay? Clearly there's something in it for Michelle where she felt the need to sign people up without their permission and log those sales under those people. There was obviously some financial benefit to doing that for her, or else she wouldn't have done it. She would not be engaging in illegal activity if the Enagic compensation plan didn't make it financially beneficial for her to do so. And this does kind of go to show that people in MLMs, they're crafty, they're tricky, they do find loopholes. No MLM compensation plan is perfect, and there are definitely ways that you can work yourself through them and take advantage of them, sometimes illegally, to further yourself in the company, to put yourself higher up in the pyramid, and to make more money overall. And I don't know about you, but being involved in some kind of business opportunity that makes you feel like engaging in these illegal activities is okay just to make some money is not necessarily a moral or ethical thing to be involved with. Shame on Michelle for doing that. I honestly feel like there's no way she couldn't have known that what she was doing was illegal or at least inappropriate or not okay. And I'm really sorry to see that your mom was the victim of her negligence and her greediness. But thank you for sending in this story. It was an interesting one for sure. This story says, "Hello Hannah, I've been a big fan of your content and anti-MLM content in general for a while now. Luckily, I was never one to join or even buy into MLMs, and after the last experience with Young Living, I really can't look at these companies with anything but contempt. The story I'm about to tell is pretty dark, and honestly, it's fueled a really intense hatred for all things MLM for me. Fair warning before I start, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer early in my junior year of college in 2020. She raised my 2 sisters and I alone and was a fantastic person all around. She was funny, caring, and worked so hard to give us any opportunities she could. We were completely destroyed to hear the diagnosis. We learned at the hospital. Turns out that she had a seizure and my stepfather rushed her to the hospital. For a while, we were really hopeful in her recovery and just trying to keep the positivity. She moved into chemo and everything seemed to be going all right. A few months later, she stops going to treatment. It was a really rough time. She was doing so well, and to suddenly just stop? Heartbreaking. We tried and tried to get her to move back into chemo, which she agreed with for a time until she found a new treatment that was supposedly going to cure all of her symptoms. Young Living, of course. I can't even look at the name anymore without feeling nauseous. We had to constantly beg for her to at least do some chemo, but as the months continued, it was a mentally draining fight that was going nowhere. They made a lot of promises to her over the phone. A second seizure happened, then a third, and her mental and physical health was fading fast. Speech was limited, she started growing weaker and weaker every day due to a lack of substantial treatment. She was mentally impaired, and the lack of mobility and speech was hurting her a lot. And these people kept promising her that the oils would soon start working. They made a lot of promises to her, ones that didn't completely suggest that she would be instantly cured at first, but they promised, quote, fast relief and amazing help with symptoms. They always used a bunch of bullshit about holistic treatments and organics to help you heal faster and purging your body of toxins. At first, we said, fine, if you want to use them for some relief while doing chemo, that's whatever. But they really gave her the impression that whatever stupid mixes and concoctions they thought of would work without chemo, they didn't. And the worst part is, the seller probably wouldn't care that they did this to an amazing woman. They didn't have to see her slowly lose herself to her illness, or go through seizures, or fall into a coma, where it was unknown whether she would come back out. They weren't there when she forgot who I was, or for the times that we would have to beg for her to get real treatment. They didn't have to watch her take her last breath after a month on hospice. I don't think I could ever forgive whoever sold her these oils, or whoever made her those promises of natural treatment. Hearing about these companies fills me with so much anger because I know she wasn't the first one to give in to the things they said. She was a smart woman, but they preyed on her in her weakest moment and set her against us through emails and communications. They would give her therapy sessions and tell her that we weren't knowledgeable and didn't know anything. We ended up with probably thousands of dollars in stupid essential oils and treatments. I will always warn people away from any of these cults. They are so dangerous and predatory, and they make me sick. Sorry for the longish story, but I just wanted to get it out there. There is some really dark stuff going on in these things, and the companies like to pretend that there isn't. It just fills me with so much sadness to see people trying to use these things as treatment for anything. Thanks for reading. If you do, it feels like a burden has been lifted off my shoulders for talking about it. If anyone is thinking of joining an MLM or is already in it, I urge you to please reconsider. This is a heavy one. This is a very heartbreaking story. First of all, I'm very sorry for the loss of your mom. Nobody should have to lose a parent that young, especially to something as sinister as cancer. I've lost several family members to cancer. I can relate to you on that front. It's devastating. And cancer is one of those things that obviously we don't have a cure for yet, and there are treatments that you can undergo to mitigate the cancer, but those treatments in themselves are not a walk in the park. They're extreme, they're damaging. And going through cancer treatments like chemo or radiation takes a huge mental and emotional and physical toll on somebody's body. In my experience with loved ones who have been diagnosed with cancer, it almost seems like they get a lot worse before they can get better. And it's a super strenuous time for them, and there's a lot of side effects that these treatments bring on that can make you feel really sick and weak and uncomfortable. And what it kind of sounds like happened in your story is that Young Living oils were pitched to your mom as a way to kind of help her cope with those symptoms of treatment. You didn't say this explicitly, but an example that's coming to mind is maybe that cancer treatments oftentimes cause people to be really nauseous or have a lack of appetite, and perhaps using oils like peppermint or ginger and diffusing them for aromatherapy, that could be a way to help you with that nausea. And in your story, it seems like that was kind of where the whole thing started. Like, you can use these oils in addition to your treatment to help you deal with the symptoms of treatment. But somewhere along the line, it got to the point where your mom was believing that she could use these oils as an alternative to treatment, which obviously is super dangerous because there's no evidence of that. Yeah, sniffing peppermint oil to help you deal with some nausea, that seems like something that could be a quote unquote harmless way to use oils, but quitting cancer treatment altogether to use oils exclusively obviously has dire consequences. And the part of your story that's really striking me is the fact that the Young Living rep, or the person who's selling your mom these oils, they likely don't fully understand the consequences of those actions. And it does make you wonder, does that person just genuinely not care? Like, making the sale and making some money off of this woman with cancer is more important to them than the actual well-being of that person with cancer? Or do they actually truly believe that their oils have cancer curing properties? Because that in itself is its own dangerous issue. But regardless, you're right. They didn't have to be there in person to witness firsthand how your mom was making progress doing chemo, and then she was set a million steps back when she decided to do oils exclusively. The Young Living seller didn't have to witness that with their own eyes. And it does make you wonder if they can fully grasp the consequences of their actions when they decided to pursue this person as a customer and when they are deciding what kinds of claims to make about their oils. I usually try to find some kind of like uplifting or lighthearted comment to make at the end of these heavier stories, but it's hard for me to do that in this case. I don't think that it would be appropriate to say that one Young Living rep was solely responsible for your mom losing her battle to cancer, but on the other hand, we just have to wonder how much differently things would have turned out if your mom had continued on the chemo path and there wasn't somebody selling essential oils to kind of intercept that and give her the impression that oils have the power to do something that they can't. Again, my heart goes out to you in the fact that you lost your mom, but I do commend you for sharing your story with us because it gives us an example of how MLM product claims can be taken too far and the detrimental consequences that can result from that. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I love your videos and I just realized that I have an MLM horror story. It's not nearly as awful and traumatic as some of the ones you've shared, luckily. Say hi to your cats for me. I have pretty much the same experiences with MLMs as a lot of people my age have. My mom never sold as far as I know, but she would host a few parties and go to parties for her friends and for some of my cousins who are serial MLM sellers and constantly throw parties for new ones. I was also approached to sell Cutco knives while I was in high school after a friend recommended me, a girl I barely knew from church and school who must have been cajoled into giving them literally all of the contacts on her phone. I still have a few MLM products that my mom purchased for me as gifts, but my brother and I have since both come across anti-MLM content online, and I I think she realizes now it's a horrible business model to support. In high school, I had an English teacher who sold LuLaRoe. I don't think she ever wore an outfit without some really loud pattern combination that was obviously LuLaRoe, because no one else sells clothes that look like that. It seemed to completely overtake her life. I have absolutely no idea if she was actually making money, but she spent so much time selling it because she sold LuLaRoe while teaching. As in, she would hand out some paper or have us read from the text or watch a performance or something barely related to class on YouTube. Sometimes she would have us read part of a novel or a short story for class, and then when we got there, she would have us take turns reading it aloud. If we had a substitute teacher, there was really no difference because the amount of time she spent actually teaching something was close to zero. She was honestly one of the worst teachers I had in high school because she clearly did not care about her day job as much as her side hustle, and she was barely engaged. We had to write short essays called quick writes constantly, so she would hand those out and have us write those while she would scroll on her phone and or computer. If we had a question about the assignment, it was always nearly impossible to get her attention. And if we ever got up to go to her desk and ask her something, she would get angry and just really nasty, probably because we interrupted her LuLaRoe buying and selling. A few of my friends also had her for study hall, and they said they often saw her grading papers while scrolling on her phone, like having a stack of something next to her and just going through the stack and writing 100% on each of them without reading them while simultaneously using her phone for something. I was lucky enough to only have her for one semester, and I graduated 3 years ago, so I have no idea what she's up to now or if she's still selling. It was genuinely just an awful class to be in, and it seemed like she didn't want to be teaching at all or respect our time as students. The rest of my English teachers were all super amazing and great to learn from, so she's been overshadowed, but I was just reminded by all of this by your videos. Thanks for all the work you do against these awful companies. I attached a photo of my cat, Billy. Oh, cute. I'll put the picture right here. So fluffy and has little white paws just like Zeke does. So honestly, hearing this story is really heartbreaking for me because if you're new to my channel and you may not know this, my background is in education. Specifically, I have my teaching certificate in elementary education, but I also did a couple years of substitute teaching while I was getting my master's, and I've done it all. I've substituted everything from preschool to 12th grade. Teaching and education is something I'm really passionate about, and it hits me right in the gut to hear that there are teachers like this out there who are clearly doing a disservice to their students by not being engaged, by not offering quality content, by basically acting as just the supervision of the classroom while you have them go off and do their own individual quiet tasks. So this story really hurts my heart. Like, that just sucks. Nobody likes having a teacher like that. Those kinds of teachers are not effective. And just to be clear, there can be teachers like this who are not affiliated with MLMs at all. That's just the way they teach. But in this case, it does seem like her involvement with LuLaRoe was interfering with her day job. And in my opinion, and I would assume the opinion of lots of people, is that if you are somebody's employee, if you do have a professional job, if you are being paid to do a certain type of work, that should be your priority while you're on the clock. During your teacher contract hours, that should be your focus. And I get that occasionally things come up, right? Like you get some kind of emergency phone call in the middle of class that you have to take or whatever it is. But in general, most of the time, if you are employed as a teacher at a school, that should be your priority during the contract hours that you're paid to be there. I can imagine that if the administration got wind of this, they would not be happy. It's not appropriate to be obviously distracted in front of your students while you're off on your computer and your phone doing completely unrelated things while you're supposed to be there to be their teacher. Look, showing a video, fine. Giving a quick write occasionally, fine. Worksheets occasionally, fine. But making that your day in, day out routine to give students what I would call busy work while you're over here doing your own thing, that's not acceptable. And where my mind is going right here, this could or could not be the actual situation, I don't know, but it's giving me the impression that she maybe is hoping to take LuLaRoe full time in the future, or she's hoping to get that business up and running enough to be a really substantial income source for her. Maybe she's looking for a way out of her teaching career, because her involvement with LuLaRoe seems to stretch a little bit further than just a side hustle that you do in your free time on the evenings and weekends. It's clearly now interfering with her actual job. And it's kind of giving me the impression that she's checked out from her teaching responsibilities abilities. That's obviously not where her care or her focus is anymore, and that perhaps she's seeing LuLaRoe as kind of a door opening for her future, which still doesn't make it acceptable, but I can see maybe that is where her headspace could be. But teaching is one of those professions that is notoriously overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and there does come kind of a breaking point in a lot of teachers' careers where they're thinking, I can't keep doing this, I have to find something else. And unfortunately, people in those types of careers like teaching are highly targeted for these MLM business opportunities because they see it as their way out or their exit strategy from this career path that they're no longer happy in, which is sad in its own right. I hate to see that teachers are targeted for MLM so heavily, but on the other hand, coming from your perspective as somebody's student, you were also done a disservice, and you don't deserve to have a teacher who is obviously splitting their attention and their time between their actual job of being a high school English teacher and their side hustle of selling super ugly leggings on the internet. That's not fair to you or the hundreds of other students that she had. So that really bums me out, but I think your story speaks to the fact that MLMs are often pitched to people as the better alternative, and people will pursue them because they're under the impression that the life they're going to live with that MLM is going to be better than the life they're living currently in their professional workplace. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories I have for you for this MLM horror stories video. Once again, if you have your own that you would like for me to consider for a video, go ahead and send it my way. The instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.